Welcome to Hardwood Handicappers with Zach Cohen, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Zachary Cohen, VSiN.com senior editor, with another episode of Hardwood Handicappers. Today is Thursday, May 7th. It is 9:15 a.m. Eastern, and today I am joined by Jonathan Von Tobel, co-host of Money Moves, co-host of Pod to the Futures podcast. JVT, what's going on with you?
And part-time co-host of Hardwood Handicappers, I get that one, and then local drive time, ESPN Las Vegas. I want all my titles out there. No, it's I'm going well. It's going well. You know, I got to like many of us, I think, last night, turn in a little bit early because there was nothing to stay up for because the zig zagged, and oh boy, the Minnesota Timberwolves definitely looked like a team that was just like, we got one, let's get out of here. So very much looking forward to the slate today. Detroit, Cleveland should be good again. So I feel well rested. What is it? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to go for the NBA today.
Yeah, somehow I didn't turn in early. I ended up watching some of that VGK game. Then I ended up watching some TV. It was a bad night. I should have been going to sleep way earlier. But yeah, you said it. The zigzag is probably where we should start. I mean, we'll go a little bit out of order last night, but, you know, we've talked about this a lot, the two of us, and I think you and I both have a harder time than most with, like, accepting some of these big spreads when they don't really make a lot of sense, but they are there for a reason. The theory exists for a reason, and the theory is that, you know, a favorite loses a game, they tend to come out and play a lot better the next night, more or less. And last night you saw it with the Spurs winning 133-95 against the Timberwolves. They were 9.5-point favorites before the game, got actually up to double digits at some point in the day. And that was despite Ayo Dosunmu coming back, Minnesota winning game one. There were a lot of reasons to believe that spread should have been shorter, but they went out and they absolutely obliterated Minnesota. So we have a 1-1 series. And yeah, like you said, zigzag theory held true there with a win.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. So Doug Kazarian, I don't know if you know him, but so he's got a different way that he tracks the zigzag. He's called this a home team or favorite coming off of an outright loss. So if by those standards, he's got 10-17 against the spread. Al McMorty, who is another old school handicapper in the space, just teams off of a playoff defeat, are 20-22 against the spread in this postseason. So it depends on how you want to look at it, but either way, I think you and I are right. You're right. I mean, both of those would indicate that larger sample size. You and I have been right about this in the sense that, like, hey, look, these should not be, as my white balance freaks out again, these should not be just blind plays on these teams. But yesterday, I think we just saw it. And with Minnesota, you know, I'm a little surprised. Like, if that was the effort, and it's not like you can know what the effort is, I think I was right when I told you guys my conspiracy theory in the Hardwood Handicappers group chat. They shouldn't have played Ant yesterday. It was seriously, right? Like, if that was going to be it, if that's what we were going to come out with, why play him? Give him the extra days off and then, you know, achieve what you can and then get back out there in game 3 and see if you can go up 2-1. That was a really disappointing effort considering what was at stake for that team.
Yeah, and even if you are going to play him, like, I don't know, I'm looking at the score and it's like late third quarter and Ant's running down a loose ball. Like, get him out early in the third quarter and at least have him rest a little bit the rest of the game. I mean, we've seen that with other teams throughout the postseason. Why at least risk him being out there for any reason whatsoever? So, yeah, I didn't think they should rest him. I thought they should have gone for the kill, gone for the 2-0 lead. But, yeah, you're right. Like, it was pretty clear that they weren't playing very well. They had very low energy, and, you know, the Spurs brought all of it. So I don't know why it was out there for as long as he was.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's no reason to put 24 minutes again on that knee. That's what he played yesterday. That too, like, to your point, like, why put the same amount of minutes on him when you clearly are just not out there and ready to go? So a lot of people, I think, will mock and laugh. I mean, I took 10.5 from Minnesota. Like, I'll wear the badge proudly. I flew in front of it. I talked about you guys, you and Kelly. I mentioned you guys on Follow the RCB on Money Moves because after game 1, I felt like you guys weren't positive enough about the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then sure enough, they go out there and get smoked here in game 2. But I don't think this is going to be representative of what the series is going to be. You know, you've been high on the entertainment value of the series, and I think that's what it's going to be. Very entertaining, very tight. I still think Minnesota can win the series, so not too turned off here. See what happens when they go back to Mini.
Yeah, so do I. I'm not, like, worried at all about what that game meant specifically for the rest of the series. I think that Minnesota is going to look fine in game 3. You saw exactly what you needed to see out of San Antonio. There was positive regression from the three-point line. They out-rebounded the Wolves. All 5 of their starters scored in double figures, but that kind of happens when you're at home and you're a young team playing the second game in a row. Like, I think that they just were a little bit more comfortable out there. They were a little more desperate. heading out of Minnesota, this is going to be a really tough environment for these young players. And I do think like the 3-point shooting was up to 41%, but I actually don't think this is a good 3-point shooting team. That's kind of why I was so low on this team heading into the season. I ended up being very wrong about it, but yeah, I think that that's going to be something to watch the rest of the series, is the way the Timberwolves defend that 3-point line against the Spurs team that I think lacks consistent shooting.
No, okay, I don't think you're wrong. And you hit the key word, consistent. Game 1, they shot under 30%. Game 2, they shoot 41%. You look at the series against Portland, they shot the lights out. For the regular season, by cleaning the glass where they track it at non-garbage time, they barely shot 36% from beyond the arc. So I'm with you. When they go down, if they go down, it's going to be because their 3-point shooting just has not been there for them. And I think if you're Minnesota, I think that you're going to continue to play the game of, let's see if you can beat us. And sometimes, guess what? It happens. Hey, we've referenced this series before, but the Oklahoma City Thunder a few years ago said, let's see if PJ Washington can continue to beat us. And they did. And he did over the course of a series against the Dallas Mavericks. But I think that you're going to continue to go down this path. And I think ultimately that's what's going to happen with this team. You're not too scared, I think, of, and this is just a random sequence, but it made me think of it. It was game 1 where I can't remember who it was from Minnesota, but they close out really hard on Stephon Castle. And I'm like, my man, he's a 33% 3-point shooter. And then what happens? He closes too hard. I think it was Naz Reid. And then he just gets blown by and for an easy layup. And you're like, those are the kind of plays that you don't need to do. Like, you can close out on them, obviously, but I'd rather risk you not getting blown by and giving up a somewhat open 3 to a 33% shooter than I would allowing Steph Castle to drive to an open hoop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I'm not too worried about this series.
Yep.
Other series started to get a little bit worried just because it is a 2-0 deficit now for the 76ers. New York goes out and beats, the Embiid-less Philly team 108-102. Sixers played a lot better in game 2. They had a chance to win that game. Tyrese Maxey played well. Everybody else kind of played well. They looked a little bit quicker. They looked like they had a little bit more energy. But in the end, I think that they were missing Joel Embiid, and that's not that crazy considering he was playing so well in the Celtics series. But yeah, 2-0 deficit for Philly. I still need Philly to win 2 games in the series. Still would like Philly to win this series, but it is getting a little bit ugly. But there was some big kind of news that came down in the fourth quarter. OG Anunoby leaves the game with a right leg injury, and there's kind of some deliberation over whether he just got like a Charlie horse or whether he strained his hamstring. And I did see, I think Robert Randolph, who sings Friday Night Knicks, said that OG is going to be fine. I don't know if that was like a source thing or he just tweeted it. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out.
I just stopped myself from making a highly inappropriate joke that I can tell you afterwards. But no, I'll say I think, he's got a history of this. I think, was it a couple years ago where OG had a hamstring issue, if I could get through it, in a postseason run, and that's going to be a small problem. We've seen it with OG Anunoby before, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was a hamstring issue that we've seen. It looked like a classic one where you kind of come up lame and after the possession, I know he was still calling for a 3 and doing all that, but the second the possession ended, he asked the bench to get out. So he knew that there was something wrong. I don't think you just do that with a Charlie horse or a mild cramp. I think you understand that you've got to get off that leg because it's serious. And that cracks the door open for him, but that's tough for Philly. I think you got to, even without Embiid, you've got to take advantage of that. You had a big edge in 3-point shooting last night. You shot 13 of 33. They went 7 of 26. That's got to be a game that you take advantage of, but turned it over a bunch, gave the Knicks the opportunities to win that game. That's brutal because if you can go up if you can tie at 1-1 going back to Philly with maybe Joel Embiid coming back, that's going to be a big one. But now all of a sudden the series is kind of in flux and it's a question. You don't know if Anunoby's going to be out there, and obviously, do we trust that Embiid's going to be out there? This sucks, dude. It's always something with this guy. He's playing as well as he is in that series at the end against Boston. And then he's just got all these ailments that force him to miss a playoff game. Maybe Philly did what I thought the Timberwolves should have done against the Spurs, which was just, look, man, you're just too beat up. Let's just see if we can get you 3 days off before we get back home. Maybe that was maybe that was it. But it's a playoff game, man. It's got to be pretty serious if you're not going to be able to play, especially when you're down 1-0. At least the Timberwolves had the advantage of being up 1-0 in the series, and they could have given Ant the night off.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Embiid too, because I know it's going to open the door for a lot of people to like call him soft and make fun of him and stuff. But he just came back from that appendectomy a lot sooner than expected and started playing very well sooner than expected. So hopefully that's not the case. But you're right. Like he must have been really banged up to not be playing in that game after playing in game one. They said that he was kind of doing round the clock treatment, in the way that we praised Anthony Edwards for doing, but was not able to get himself out there. So hopefully people don't beat him up too bad over it. But I would like to see him in game three. I think everybody would. You just never know with this guy. So, you'd have to wait till right before tip, I think, if you're going to bet that game three. And it's going to be trouble for them if they do not get Embiid back. I mean, I think that even without Embiid, they would probably split those games in Philly.
Yep.
But still, like, winning 2 games or this series going over 5.5 games, whatever way you attacked it with us, it's not a great, situation right now. So, Anunoby getting injured opens the door a little bit. Like you said, he has dealt with this before. I think it was the Pacers series a couple years ago where the Knicks went up in that series. Anunoby got injured and it ended up being a loss in game 7. So we'll see. I mean, this is a guy that does deal with these types of things. So if it was that hamstring, we could be looking at 2-3 games. So not out of the woods yet if you're the Knicks, but a very good start to the series. And the last, 5 games, they've looked like by far the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it has looked that way, especially with the way that they had that other series that we'll talk about, Detroit and Cleveland, has been going down on the other side of the bracket. But I would say, too, the other thing that was somewhat disappointing yesterday, and as a Clippers fan, I am quite familiar with this, but Paul George was lacking, for lack of a better term. 5 of 13 from 3, but 13 shot attempts from beyond the arc, only 5 inside. He only got to the free throw line once. He ended up with 19 points, was the second leading scorer, but a really bland night from Paul George for the most part. You shouldn't be getting outplayed by Kelly Oubre and VJ Edgecombe, one of them being a rookie. And that's exactly what happened in these games. I mean, that's kind of why he got signed. I know that we all talked about, hey, man, this is great. Like, he's like a third or fourth option. But, well, when the top option's gone, you move up a peg, bro. And you got to be able to do something. And that was very reminiscent of some Clippers playoff performances that I've seen from Paul George.
Yeah, well, from the mind of Mason Crossbar, Skip Bayless proved that he still had, maybe not his fastball, but his slider, and he called him playoff P, P-E-E.
I saw that. I refuse to give him any sort of credit for anything.
His nicknames they're terrible, but they're like somehow funny because of how bad they are. Like Mason Crossbar was a nickname given to Mason Crosby because he kicked a field goal that went in and did not even touch the crossbar. So it bent inside the crossbar and he still got that awful nickname. But playoff P, P-E-E. But I do kind of wonder if this series we're seeing like the effects of the McCain deal at the deadline. A lot of people are kind of saying that about Morey and, dumping McCain the way he did. We'll talk about McCain a little bit later, but I do think that this team lacks depth in a way. Like I thought that maybe 6-7 guys would be good enough in a series like this, but like the Don Barlow minutes have been really bad, even though he was like solid during the regular season. And you could just see that they need an extra body, especially when Embiid is out. So they need to like really prioritize the backup center position and not in a way that like Drummond is out there hitting corner threes and just like looking like he's rebounding. They need to get a guy that can actually just like play defense, like switchable defense at the backup 5. I don't know how they haven't prioritized that. It's like having an injury prone quarterback. You need to have a good backup QB. This is bad.
Yep, I would agree. And to your point, too, about the depth, you had the 4 guys. You had Edgecombe, you had Maxey, you had George, and you had Oubre all score at least 17 points. And then coming off of the bench, the next leading scorer is Quentin Grimes at 7, and nobody else scored more. Like that's got to be more. And Grimes wasn't particularly great either. He was 1 of 4 from the floor, so that's got to be better, too. The depth has to be a lot more effective.
Yeah, well, let's get into tonight's games. But first, I wanted to say the NBA playoffs are here, and the edges are smaller than ever. VSiN Pro gives you the advanced analytics, player prop projections, and expert insights that serious bettors rely on when every game matters most. Try it for only $9.99 for your first month and see what sharps are using to beat the books. Head to vsin.com/subscribe and check out all of your options. All right, tonight's games. I'm a little bit excited for this first one, even though it has been a bit of a drag for our Cleveland Cavaliers. Game 2, Cleveland in Detroit, 7 p.m. Eastern. Once again, these Pistons are favored by 3.5 points. Totals 215.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
So I think sidewise, I guess I'll start there first, is I think it would be Cleveland for me here, taking 3.5 against Detroit. I think despite the loss, you have to feel pretty okay if you're the Cavaliers, playing as poorly as you did in that game and yet still having an opportunity to win that game against Detroit down the stretch and needing the Pistons to kind of come through in clutch time and give you some really big buckets to end up pulling away and win it. The turnovers obviously have to change, and that's not going to change to a really big deal. I mentioned this to Stormy the other day. Pistons were, first or second in defensive turnover rate in the regular season? They're a very good defensive team when it comes to forcing turnovers, so I think Cleveland's turnover rate is going to be a little bit higher than normal in this series as we expect it to be. But the other part, Zach, they averaged a half point per play in transition, Cleveland did, in that game, according to Cleaning the Glass. They were awful whenever they went out and ran, and they didn't really do it that often. I would assume part of your logic here, if you're Kenny Atkinson, is trying to get this team to move up and down the floor a little bit quicker. Don't let Detroit set your defense. Don't let them get into a match that's a more half-court oriented that allows them then to jump passing lanes, to do the things that they do to force turnovers a little bit more. So would expect a little bit more speed, would expect that Donovan Mitchell bounces back, but I think you're also looking at some of these ancillary pieces and expecting a little bit more. I know Strus was actually pretty good against Detroit, had 19 points. I was going to ask you, because you've been a pretty big guy, pretty big fan of his. Do we get more Jalen Tyson in this game? Just because I feel like you need another ball handler, you need another floor spacer out there to just kind of release the paint a little bit more. And I think you just want to try to outshoot Detroit a little bit in this series, especially when you get into some of these half-court sets.
I think you might see more Tyson because, like, if Dean Wade's not knocking down shots, like if he's not knocking down his corner threes or at least taking them, it's hurting that team offensively. So maybe you give Tyson a shot. He's done very well on Cade Cunningham as well as a defender. Yep. So, I don't think you're losing much there, even though Wade is a very good wing defender. So wouldn't be surprised if Tyson plays a little bit more. That's another guy, like you said, that can kind of grab and go, run some offense off rebounds, and, would overall just kind of pick up this, the pace of this game for Cleveland. But I think you're right. Like, a lot of things from game one also just won't happen again. Like, I think the turnovers were an issue. I think the Pistons shot 35 free throws. Yep. It was just a lot of Jared Allen, 3 very quick fouls. You don't see that very often. I think you're going to see just a little bit more of a buttoned up Cleveland team in game 2. And it's not like they got blown out. I mean, they were down 18 points at one point, but they got it to 93 all, had a chance to win the game. And that was with Donovan Mitchell largely looking invisible. I thought that James Harden, did a good job of kind of carrying them back into the game. As you said, though, he did get, kind of cough it up a lot and, played a big role in that hole being dug in general. But I still kind of stick with my pre-series guns here that Cavaliers have a little too much firepower for them, and I think we're going to see it at some point. Like I said this with Kelly on the other day, like we all talked about the Larry Markkinen trade and, what this team needed to go out and get like a floor spacing 4. All of a sudden, Tobias Harris has turned into that. Don't think we're going to see that the rest of the postseason. I don't think you can count on Harris to score 18 plus every night the way that he has dating back to last series. I think he's going to come crashing down at some point. Then you're really going to be lacking a number 2 behind Cade, who, not the greatest game 1, and this has been a tough matchup for him all year.
And to the point about Tyson, to bring this back really quickly, we should also note with Merrill questionable as well, right? I mean, that's because you need somebody else. And I know Tyson has shown that he has at least the ability to knock down a shot from distance and everything that you mentioned, speed him up, defend a little bit. So I think it sets up for him to have a pretty decent day. I'm trying to find, I think Tyson's point total was somewhere. I had this on my notes here. Let me pull this up really quickly. 5.5, or excuse me, 6.5. And I think it's a fair number to ask maybe to go over here with Jalen Tyson here today. The other part about Mitchell, and I'm curious your thoughts too. So his usage rate the last 2 games, so game 7 of Toronto, and then the last game in this series, so the first game of it, it was 25%. For reference, in the first 6 games of the postseason, it was 31%. And for the season, it's 33%. So I don't know why they just weren't running as much offense through him. I mean, Harden's usage rate was like nearly 40% in game 1.
Yeah.
That's got to change too. And I would think that Donovan Mitchell's probably going to have a lot more offense running through him in this game too. Only because you can't get away with Donovan Mitchell only having 25% of your possessions in a playoff series go through him. That just can't happen.
Especially in what is essentially a contract year in a way. I mean, he's going to demand out if they don't go far, if he's not happy with the way this playoff series goes. So I think you're going to see Mitchell kind of, get the ball a little bit more. I think that Harden, maybe their thought is just he's the better kind of pick and roll operator and passer and floor general. But you saw 7 turnovers in game 1. Give Mitchell some more chances. Give Harden some time off the ball. You allow him to save some energy for the fourth quarter. I think we will see some changes. Should mention, I did actually take Cleveland tonight. I have Cleveland plus 3.5. I also have Cleveland a little bit with money line plus 144. It's a bigger play for me on the spread, but I wanted some money line action. But
Yeah.
do really think the Cavaliers bounce back. And the Merrill injury does seem like it'll keep him out. Like he's getting an MRI, I believe, today if he hasn't had it already. So late MRI, can't really imagine him being out there after that, but we'll see. I don't know. I mean, but I wouldn't really be opposed to some more Keon Ellis minutes and just trying to get him out there to just kind of combat this team with some tenacity.
Yeah, so and that's the other part I was going to say too. I mean, it's not exactly addition by subtraction, but Merrill is kind of a target on defense too whenever he plays out there. So, while you miss the knockdown shooting ability, at the very least, if you're playing, like you said, Keon Ellis or Tyson a little bit more, then all of a sudden you have more viable options defensively there in a backup ball handler role. And I think that's just better for Cleveland in a series like this too.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else for this game before we move on to the next one, which is
I think with all of everything that we've talked about here, there's 215.5s out there for our killer sports contest. The total's 216. I played this first game under. I had mentioned, maybe the slower pace and the fact that the Cavs had kind of struggled from three. I was right about the pace. Only 93 possessions in that first game. But if after watching that and everything we're talking about, my assumption here is going to be that the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to try to speed this game up a little bit. Like you just have to. So I think that you're going to get a few more possessions, some better offensive efficiency, fewer turnovers, everything we've talked about. So I think I kind of want to zigzag on the total. In the market, it's bet that thing over in game one. Got it wrong. But I think I'm going to come back here with the over in game two. So over 215.5 after we've kind of discussed this. I think it's totally playable here.
Yeah, looking at like our splits over at VSiN.com, over at DraftKings, it looks like people are betting the over and it's standing firm at 215.5. So we'll see what happens there. With the contest specifically, I do like to just take a stale number if I can get it. So we'll see what happens closer to
How'd that work for us last night, Zach, with the New York Knicks?
I know. Last night I had I had the 76ers and the Spurs in like all day, and then enough changed that I was like, I'm taking both off and just taking tonight off, and both ended up winning. So I was pissed.
I went 7. I went what's it called? Yeah, I went Knicks. And because the night before I tried to get cute, I can't even remember what I had, but I was just like, I'll try to get cute here. And then sure enough, I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting my face kicked in today. This sucks.
All right, let's move on to the game that no one wants to talk about. The Lakers at the Thunder, 9:30 p.m. Eastern tip at DraftKings. 15.5 point favorites is OKC. Total is 210.5, actually down from 211.5 at open. Do you have anything in this game? I've had a really hard time with this series because, as you know, I do not really like laying double digits. At the same time, don't really trust the Lakers to be keeping these spreads, keep these games close.
Well, and come on. Okay, non-data, non-numbers thing. This definitely seems to be a team whose wind has just been ripped from its sails. Like, not only were they coming into the series and JJ Redick was trying to soften the blow with like, hey, this is one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah.
And then LeBron after the game, I don't know if you saw the media availability in the locker room when somebody asked him about the offensive execution. What do you mean? And like kind of snapped at the reporter. And then you get the media availability yesterday, where for the first time we learned that the timeline for Luka this whole time has been 8 weeks and not 4 to 6, which is absolutely insane. This team just seems mentally to just be a group that's just living on borrowed time. Maybe when you get back home in LA, you get a little bit of the verb from your home crowd at the Crypt and you can steal a game. I know that you had mentioned in our group chat, like maybe without Jalen Williams out there, but I just don't see where this offense is coming from for LA in this series. I mean, even without Williams, you're such a dynamic backcourt defense if you're Oklahoma City. And then you look at what they did in the first game in terms of cutting off the paint to the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, everything for LA. They got 29 shot attempts within 4 feet of the basket. They only went 17 of 29. That's 58%. That's awful for those who are wondering if you're shooting at the rim. In the painted area, we'll call it like the floater area, they were 3 of 13. So anything inside of about, 14 feet or so, like they had nothing, absolutely nothing. Yeah. And I don't think that's really going to go anywhere anytime soon. And the turnovers, I mean, it's not an abysmal turnover rate, but still you turned it over in non-garbage time, by the way. This cuts off at about 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Not that much of a sample size, but you still turned it over on nearly 20% of your possessions. And that's not really going anywhere. Who are you trusting in terms of shot creation outside of Austin Reeves and LeBron James against anybody? Now you have to do it against Oklahoma City. There's just so many roadblocks that come up for this. And by the way, I think the bad things for LA, we'll see how this game gets called today. Oklahoma City didn't even really get to the free throw line. Shea didn't even get to the free throw line. He was trying, and they were not giving it to him. So this might be called a little bit differently here a second time around. And if that's the case, that's just going to add to this. So I think it's Thunder or nothing. The one thing that I threw out there to Stormy, and I think I might take a crack at this for our contest as well, depending on what the number is. But what are we talking about? Yeah, see, I think I might do it too. The over in this game, only because if the Thunder win by margin, and the score I threw out there last time was like 123 to like 95, right?
Yep.
Where you can get over this total, but still have a win by margin for OKC because the offense is just a little bit better. I think you could see that scenario playing out. So that was the only thing that I was kind of testing with. And by the way, for Killer Sports, the total we're getting in our contest is 209, and we're up to 210.5. I think 210.5 might be playable, but I'm definitely going to use that for the contest.
Yeah, I might end up going there as well. I mean, another thing like you could say about game one too is I thought the Lakers played well for 3 quarters. The OKC played garbage for 4 quarters and still ended with an 18-point win. So it's not a good sign moving forward. The reason I texted that to you and Kelly though is like just kind of looking at the Thunder. Sure. When they are playing without Jalen Williams, they look a little bit smaller. They look like they just kind of lack a little bit of talent. So I know that this has been a really good team, a really deep team all throughout this OKC kind of tenure era, but I do think that there's a chance that the Lakers steal one at home still. I mean, I'm not going to take the points here. I just don't feel good enough about it. But to answer one of your questions about shot creation, hopefully it's Rui Hachimura again. I took him over 12.5 points, minus 111. I also sprinkled some 15 plus at plus 150. He has had a few good games against the Thunder this year, 3 games out of 5 in which he has scored, 13 plus points and just been kind of on a tear for like the last 2-3 weeks of consistently putting up 12 to 15 points. So hoping that he could do that again. And then you mentioned the blowout possibility and, going over. I took Jared McCain over 3.5 points at plus 106 last night, which is like a human victory cigar type of player. But I think that he, got 15 minutes in game one, knocked down all of his threes. I feel like there's a chance that he's earned himself a little bit more minutes in game 2. But even if it's just the 15 again, I don't know. The quality of looks that he's been getting, I think you can pretty easily go over the number.
All right, so a couple of things. First off, to that point about the human victory cigar, a couple of years ago when Xavier Moon used to play for the Clippers broadcast team used to have a great line. They would say the moon is rising whenever he got off the bench because that meant they were blowing the teams out if he was getting into the game. So to that point, I absolutely love those kind of angles. The other is, I really like your point because I brought this up to Stormy yesterday when we were talking about the game. Like the old school, like 1980s and even like 70s, the broadcast for the NBA where they would never have the score up all the time.
Yeah.
And so they would have to flash it every once in a while. I told Stormy, I was like, this Lakers effort seemed like it was going so well that if you were broadcasting in that style, you'd be watching and going, oh, the Lakers are in this thing. And then they would update the score. You'd be like, oh, they're like down by 11. Like, what's happening here? Like, oh, they're down by 16 now. What's going on? I'm watching a team putting in a very good effort, and yet the score is just getting worse and worse. It just seems like they're so up against it, dude.
Yeah. They absolutely are. I mean, Luka, I don't know, he's posting pictures of himself like deadlifting. It seems like he believes he's maybe closer than he is, or maybe he is closer than we think he is, but it's just going to be impossible without him for them to actually be competitive in this series.
Did you watch his scrum yesterday?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so I watched. So first off, he said he was running, but he said he's not doing any contact stuff. So like he's not close at all. The other is, I'm always surprised. I always forget this because, I watch interviews with him. I forget that English is like his third language because what did they ask him? They asked him something about it's like there was a word that they used with him, but he asked him, he goes like, what does that word mean? And that just really, I don't know why, that really surprised me. I was like, oh yeah,
like this is like good English. It's like, that's why it's surprising. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a somewhat like, I'd say it's like a C-level word, you know what I mean? But I was like, oh, like that was surprising. I keep forgetting that these guys are like humans and maybe this is not like his primary language, but he told them that he wasn't ready, that he's just barely running now and not even close to contact. So it seems like that's the case. Oh, and by the way, is Jared Vanderbilt playing today? I mean, I think you kind of need him a little bit, right?
They said he's questionable. They popped that finger back into the skin, and I don't know how he's going to play.
That was a wild quote from JJ Redick yesterday. They put his finger back together. He's day to day.
Yeah, it's classic JJ. He's really like leaning into like the tough guy coach stick. I love it. But yeah, it's another ugly game. Really not a series that I've been particularly interested in. So I would like to see the Lakers put up a fight. I think that maybe we see it in Los Angeles, but these games have not been for me. This series really not for me. The other series, all pretty good to some extent. So it's not like we have a bad, Final Four, but this has been an ugly watch.
Yeah, I have not been entertained so far. So maybe we get one. It sucks because, of course, I'm sure LeBron will get roasted and it's all his fault and whatnot. But the other ones at least are living up to it so far.
What has anything that you've seen in the first two games of any series, I guess, or first game, changed your thoughts on a series outcome? Are you like, have you written anything off that you thought would win before?
No, I mean, I think the 76ers are the easy one, right? Just because they lost the first game, they lose that game, and Embiid is hurt. I have over 5.5 games in that series, and I'm feeling pretty nervous about that just because of the Embiid injury and where they're at in that series. And I thought they could win it. And I've got this from before the season started. I've got the Sixers at 18-1 to win the Eastern Conference. So my confidence in them has started to really grow down the stretch, obviously, especially after that series against Boston and whatnot. So that's probably the easy answer. But I'm with you. I think you kind of mentioned this. I'm going to dig my heels in a little bit on Cleveland. I still think they can win that series, and I still think that they can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll see if they can win it once they get there. I also think they're desperately trying to get there. I mean, think about the road that they've played in terms of opposing defenses. It's been a slog for Cleveland. You play, right? Like Toronto's just like at least a high effort, somewhat tenacious, like rangy team that can switch a bunch and has some good gritty dudes. And you're like, geez, dude, like another one of these guys. And then you get to Detroit, who's one of the best defensive teams in the field. I feel like it's going to be one of those where, you're constipated the whole time and then you finally get some relief and you're going to be like just loose and ready to go. And I think Cleveland, if they can make it out of the series, we're going to see the offense that we expected if they face New York. I don't know if that means they'll win, but they'll just be, I think, a little bit more loose and a little bit more free. I mentioned him on Money Moves the other day. In the regular season with Harden and Mitchell on the floor together, they had an offensive rating of nearly 130. So far in this postseason, it's like 113.2. Like that has just been nowhere near what you wanted it to be. And I think part of it is because of these just really hard-nosed defensive opponents that they face in the first two rounds.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, I think if the Cavaliers get through this, which I still think they will, I do think that the Knicks series is going to make them look a lot better than the first two series that we saw. I think that the matchup between those two really does favor Cleveland, and we saw that a little bit in the regular season. So I'm kind of holding out hope there that like we can still kind of get these Cleveland tickets home.
Yeah.
But New York's looks great. I'm sure the Knicks fans are already kind of considering that this team could potentially win the NBA Finals, given the way that they've looked over these last 2 weeks. But I do think that they would have something to worry about in either of the next two series. I think that the Pistons gave them trouble in the regular season, played that really close series against them last year. I think Detroit would be a really tough matchup for them. I think Cleveland, just in terms of shot making talent on the perimeter, would also be a problem.
You want to piss? I know Michael is a New York guy. This is the conference finals. Cleveland, Detroit. This is the conference finals. Winner is going to come out of the East. I'm telling you that right now.
I will say this for the Knicks, like Mikal Bridges came shooting out of that slump in a big way, and that definitely ups their ceiling and their floor. So that was big for them. I thought that he should have never been out of the rotation, but
I'll believe it when I see it for like 4 straight games.
I think he's still a really good player. I thought that it was really ballsy of Mike Brown to kind of like make him the scapegoat and play him 20 minutes in favor of Deuce McBride. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there, but we'll recap the best bets in a second here. I do want to say attention to any listeners who are new to VSiN. Signing up for our free daily newsletter is a great way to catch up. Delivered straight to your inbox every morning, VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, and strategies for the day's betting menu. Sign in for free now at vsin.com/newsletter and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That's vsin.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. All right, let's recap our best bets for this evening. I have Cavaliers plus 3.5, minus 110 to win 1.5 units. Also risked half a unit on the Cavaliers at plus 144. I took Rui Hachimura over 12.5 points to win 1.5 units as well, minus 111 there. Then I risked a half unit on 15 plus points for him. Then I have Jared McCain over 3.5 points at plus 106. Think that's up now where you'd have to lay like minus 120 if you want to take the over 3.5. I've been putting these in the night before going the Kelly Biblin route more than I normally do because just a lot easier for me with my schedule lately to get these done the night before. But I would still take McCain. I would still take McCain over 4.5 points if you had to.
All right. For me, I will go with, I'll ride with you on Cleveland at the plus 3.5 with the Cavaliers. We'll go over the total as well, 215.5 for Cleveland and Detroit. We'll also play over Jalen Tyson, over 6.5 points. You can find that at a couple of spots. You have underdog. I don't, but that's actually minus 112 both ways. So you can find that out there. Minus 125 is going to be the price that I'll use here for Tyson. And we will go over 210.5 for Lakers Thunder tonight.
Yeah, I might join you on that over in the contest, but thanks for joining me. 209 is definitely, more playable than that. I'm going to take any stale numbers I can in that contest. It's the easiest thing to do. But thanks for joining me again today. Always love having you on. We'll have you on again next week. Pretty soon, we'll be talking some off season too when we do these shows. So we have a lot to get into between this, the draft, the off season.
NBA draft, baby.
I know, I'm pumped for the draft. So I'm excited for, some of these slower days. We'll get into some, more wide-ranging topics while also continuing to hit the playoffs. But thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to everybody. If you enjoyed today's show, please, help us out whatever way you can in terms of feedback, whether that's subscribing, liking, rating. We appreciate any of it. So definitely make sure you do that. But we'll see you on a Friday episode of Hardwood Handicappers, and best of luck today.